Listen to me. Greatness ain't built in a day. It's built in the dark. It's built in the 1%. Too many of you want to go from 0 to 100. You want the body without the reps. You want the degree without the study. You want the success without the process. But I came here today to remind you, if you get 1% better every single day, you will be unrecognizable in 1 year. 1%. That's it. Not perfection. Progress. I'm not asking you to lift the whole mountain. I'm asking you to move 1 stone. I'm not telling you to finish the marathon today. I'm telling you to take the first step. 1 better decision, 1 better habit, 1 better thought. The secret to mastery is not in doing everything today. It's in doing the right thing every day. It's in stacking small wins until they turn into massive momentum. You think greatness is loud? Nah, greatness is quiet repetition. It's the alarm clock at 4 a.m. It's the water instead of the soda. It's the book instead of the scrolling. It's the yes, sir, the discipline, and the no, sir, the comfort. People ask me, E.T., how did you become who you are? I became who I am. 1% at a time. I didn't jump levels. I earned every inch. So now I ask you, what are you doing today that makes you 1% better than you were yesterday? If the answer is nothing, then don't expect everything. You don't have to be extreme. You just have to be consistent. The world won't reward you for what you almost did. It rewards what you grind for daily. So wake up and chase that 1%. 1 day. You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. And that start doesn't have to be big, dramatic, or flashy. It just has to be real. It just has to be 1%. That's all. 1%. Because small progress beats no progress every single time. Most people lose in life because they want it all at once. They want the mansion, $1 million, the abs, the dream job now. And because they can't have it, now they do nothing. They sit back, watch others rise and say, I'll start when the time is right. The truth is, the time will never be right, but the time is always now. See, here's what I learned. It's better to crawl forward than to stand still. It's better to stumble in the direction of growth than to sit still waiting for perfection. And the reason so many people are stuck is because they think if it's not huge, it's not valuable. If the win isn't loud, it doesn't count. But let me tell you, the real champions, the real grinders, the real legends, they built it in silence. They built it in inches, not miles. When I was homeless, eating out of trash cans, sleeping in abandoned buildings, I didn't become a motivational speaker overnight. I didn't walk into a studio and drop the mic, and suddenly the world knew my name. I made 1 better decision a day. I went to the library instead of the corner. I started reading instead of reacting. I started thinking long-term instead of living moment to moment. I was broke. I was tired. But I had will. And will plus 1% every day, that's unstoppable. 1% better might mean getting up 10 minutes earlier to pray, to journal, to prepare your mind. It might mean drinking water instead of soda. It might mean going to the gym and walking on the treadmill instead of scrolling through social media. 1% better might mean saying no to gossip, to distractions, to shortcuts, and saying yes to your purpose. And you know what? Those small decisions are like bricks. Every day you make one. You're stacking a brick on your foundation. It doesn't look like much at first. It looks slow. It looks small, but keep stacking day after day. And one day you'll look up and realize you built a fortress. You want to build confidence. Stop talking about what you'll do and just start doing. You want to build a new life. Stop waiting for the new year, the new week, the new opportunity. Start now. Start imperfectly. Start broken. Start scared. But just start. Because small progress, daily progress. That's the stuff that changes your life. We live in a microwave society, but greatness is baked in a slow oven. You gotta turn up the heat, stay patient, and trust the process. People will laugh, people will doubt, but stay focused. You're not doing it you're doing it for you. I'm not saying it'll be easy. 1% better every day might mean doing something uncomfortable every day. It might mean doing it tired, doing it afraid, doing it even when nobody notices. But that's the point. When no one's clapping, when the spotlight is off, when you're alone with your thoughts, that's where growth begins. That's where discipline is built. That's where winners are made. Too many of you want to go from A to Z, but you're ignoring B through Y. You want the championship ring, but you skip practice. You want the applause, but you won't grind in the dark. I'm telling you right now, fall in love with the small, fall in love with the ordinary, fall in love with the early mornings, the routines, the reps, the writing, the workouts. That's the difference between people who dream and people who execute. Dreamers wait, executives act, they take the step, they do the work. They get better, 1% at a time. 1% might not look like much on day one. You might not see results in the mirror. You might not see praise from others. But that's not the goal. The goal is to be better than the you from yesterday. That's the real competition. That's the real enemy. Not the person on Instagram, not your coworker, not your classmate. The real enemy is who you were yesterday. And every day you show up and get 1% better, you're beating that person. You're evolving. You're transforming. And let me break this down for you in real numbers. 1% a day over 365 days, you don't just become a little better. You become 37 times better by the end of the year. That's exponential growth. That's compound interest on your mind, your health, your relationships, your purpose. But guess what happens if you get 1% worse every day? You decline. You don't stay the same in life. You either grow or you shrink. You rise or you fall. So the choice is yours, progress or decay. And don't you dare say, I'm too far behind. I don't care how far behind you are. I don't care how many times you failed. I don't care how long you've been stuck. You can still move forward. You can still rise. But you've got to commit. You've got to say, I will show up for me even when I don't feel like it. That's what separates the good from the great. The great show up regardless of mood. The great find a way to improve even when they're exhausted. The great don't need motivation. They got discipline. And discipline starts with one small act of obedience a day. So stop waiting to feel ready. Start doing. Stop worrying about the whole staircase. Just take the next step. Because the people who win in life, they don't sprint to the finish line. They walk it out. They jog it. They crawl when they have to. But they never quit. They keep getting up, dusting themselves off and saying, let me do one thing better today than I did yesterday. That's how you build a life you're proud of. That's how you break generational curses. That's how you become a better spouse, parent, student, leader, human being. 1% at a time. You won't always see the change right away. But trust me, it's happening inside you every time you make that choice. Your mind is rewiring. Your spirit is sharpening. Your body is aligning. It's slow, yes. But slow progress is still progress. Don't despise small beginnings. Embrace them. Because one day you'll look back and realize the small things were the big things. So what are you waiting for? Get up, move forward, get better today. Not by 100%, not even by 10%, but one, just one. And if you do that enough days in a row, you'll become someone no one can recognize. Not because you changed overnight, but because you changed daily. Small progress beats no progress every single time. We live in a world obsessed with outcomes. Everywhere you look, people are showcasing the results, the six-pack abs, the luxury car, the six-figure job, the highlight reels. But nobody's showing the early mornings, the late nights, the discipline, the sacrifices, the process. And that's where most people get it wrong. They chase outcomes without building the habits that create them. They want the fruit without planting the seed. They want to skip the dirt, skip the watering, skip the waiting. But that's not how life works. That's not how growth works. If you want real transformation, lasting success, sustainable greatness, you have to focus on the habits, not the outcomes. When you focus on the outcome, your mindset is always in the future. I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to be a millionaire. I want to get straight A's. That's fine, but that's not the work. That's the reward. That's the destination. But if you don't map out the road, you'll never get there. You can't run a marathon by staring at the finish line. You run it one step at a time. 1 mile, one breath, one stride. It's the small, repeated habits that get you there, not the goal written on the wall. Let me ask you something. If you woke up every day at 5 a.m., read for 30 minutes, worked out for an hour, and avoided junk food, do you think your life would improve? Of course it would. Even if your goal wasn't specific. Why? Because your habits determine your future. It's not your goals. Goals give you direction, but habits give you motion. And motion beats intention every day of the week. Here's the hard truth. Most people don't fail because they don't have goals. They fail because they have no systems. They fail because their daily routine doesn't match their dream. You can talk all day about success, but if your habits are trash, your results will be too. It's that simple. You can't read one book and become wise. You can't do one workout and expect to be fit. You can't pray one time and expect spiritual growth. You can't work hard one day and expect to be rich. You need consistency. You need discipline. You need to lock in on the process. The process is what separates the amateurs from the professionals. Anybody can post a motivational quote. Anybody can say they want it, but few are willing to do the unsexy work over and over again when no one is watching. The early hours, the silence, the failure, the repetition. That's what builds greatness. That's what makes champions. See, outcomes lie. They make it look easy. They make it look quick. But the process, that's where the truth lives. That's where the real story is written. And the beautiful thing about habits is that they don't require you to be extraordinary. They just require you to be intentional. You don't need to be born talented. You don't need to be rich. You just need to show up. Every day, no excusey, no days off. When you train your mind to focus on the habit, you become powerful because you start showing up regardless of mood, regardless of motivation, regardless of whether the sun is shining or the storm is raging. You show up because it's who you are now. It's your identity. That's the next level. When the habit becomes who you are, you don't say, I'm trying to work out. You say, I'm an athlete. You don't say, I'm trying to write. You say, I'm a writer. You say, I'm a writer. You don't say, I'm trying to eat better. You say, I'm the kind of person who values my health. Identity is built through behavior. When you act like the person you want to become, you start to become that person. That's why it's dangerous to focus only on the outcome. Because if you don't hit it fast enough, you'll quit. If the scale doesn't move in a week, you'll get discouraged. If you don't see money after your first hustle, you'll stop grinding. But if you're focused on the habit, you don't quit. Because you're not chasing a number, you're building a lifestyle. And that's what lasts. That's what carries you through when life hits hard. Because life will hit hard. There will be setbacks, delays, disappointments. If your success is tied to the outcome only, you'll lose hope. But if it's tied to your daily habits, your anchor stays strong. Let me give you a real example. Say your goal is to become a great speaker. You could obsess over booking stages and building a following. Or you could build the habit of writing and rehearsing one speech a week. Guess which one would actually make you a better speaker? Not the followers, not the stages, the reps, the daily grind, the focus on craft. Same with fitness. Don't just chase the six-pack. Build the habit of moving your body every day. Cook your meals, track your sleep. That's how transformation happens. Through small, repeated, boring actions done with excellence over time. And here's the secret. The better your habits, the less you have to rely on willpower. Because habits run on autopilot. They don't ask for permission. Once they're locked in, they carry you when your feelings try to pull you back. You won't always feel like showing up, but your habits will. That's why you build them. That's why you protect them. That's why you choose them over momentary pleasure. Because every time you choose a positive habit, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. You vote for strength, for discipline, for wisdom. And those votes add up day by day, week by week, till one day you look back and realize you're living in the results of your repeated choice, not your wishes, not your intention, your habits. And you can start small. Don't underestimate a 5-minute habit. Don't mock the small step. That small step, when done consistently, can lead to a completely different life. So maybe your habit today is drinking more water, reading 10 pages, practicing gratitude, saying no to distraction, waking up without snoozing. That's progress. That's momentum. Stack those habits and you'll be a completely different person in 6 months. But here's the key. You can't just build good habits. You also have to eliminate bad ones because you can't outrun your daily dysfunction. You can't outtrain a terrible diet. You can't outwork toxic thinking. You can't grow while constantly feeding distractions. So take inventory. What are you doing every day that's pulling you away from your goals? Be honest, and then replace those habits with ones that align with your vision. Because life is not about doing everything right once. It's about doing the right things daily. It's about waking up and saying, what are the habits that serve my future? And then doing them again and again, until they become second nature. That's how you win. That's how you create lasting change. Not by chasing outcomes, but by building systems. Not by waiting for motivation, but by building momentum. One habit at a time. So stop obsessing over the finish line. Start building the routine. Show up. Do the work. Trust the process. And watch what happens when you focus on the input instead of the output. Your life will change. Not because you hope for it, but because you built it. And that's the real secret. Focus on habits, not outcomes, and the outcome will take care of itself. You don't have to go all out every day to succeed. That's a myth. That grind until you collapse mentality might sound tough on paper, but in real life, it burns people out. It destroys consistency. It creates cycles of motivation and crash. What really separates the successful from the stuck is not intensity, but consistency. It's not about how hard you hit one time. It's about how often you show up. You don't need to give 100% every single day. You just need to give something every day. You just need to keep moving. That's where the power is. That's where the change happens. Because consistency always beats intensity in the long run. Let me break it down for you. Anyone can be motivated for a day. Anyone can put in a strong effort when they feel fired up, inspired, or fresh. You go to the gym, lift heavy, sweat like crazy, and then what? You don't go back for a week. That one intense workout didn't build anything. It didn't change your body. But walking in that gym for 30 minutes, 5 days a week, that will transform your body and your discipline. Why? Because habits aren't built on intensity, they're built on frequency, on repetition, on showing up, and showing up every day doesn't mean being perfect every day. That's another lie we've been sold, that if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. That kind of thinking is poison. It keeps people frozen. It keeps people in cycles of sabotage. The truth is, doing something imperfectly is still better than doing nothing at all. If you can't run 5 miles, walk 1. If you can't study for 2 hours, study for 15 minutes. If you can't pray for 30 minutes, pray for 3. Give what you can today and trust that it's moving you forward. Success isn't a sprint. It's a slow climb. It's a staircase, not an elevator. You climb one step at a time, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but you climb. And the people who keep climbing, even when it's slow, even when it's small, they're the ones who reach the top. You think the legends became great because they had one powerful day? No, they became great because they were faithful in the small thing. They didn't just work hard when it was convenient or exciting. They worked hard when it was boring, when it was repetitive, when it was hard. That's the difference maker, not talent, not luck, not a big moment, but 1,000 small, intentional, consistent action. People who focus only on intensity burn out. You've seen it. They get hyped, go all in for a week, maybe a month, and then disappear. Why? Because they try to do everything at once instead of doing the right things daily. Intensity is like a spark. It's exciting, it's bright. It's exciting, it's bright, but it fades. Consistency is like a flame. It burns steadily. It keeps you warm and it lasts. What you want is not just a spark, but a fire that sustains you. Think about this. Brushing your teeth once a month for an hour won't save your teeth. But brushing them twice a day for 2 minutes will. That's consistency. That's discipline. That's how real results are built. You don't write a book in a day. You write it 1 page at a time. You don't become a great leader in a weekend. You develop it 1 decision, 1 mistake, 1 lesson at a time. You don't transform your body with 1 hard workout. You do it with daily nutrition, daily movement, daily habits. That's how it works. We live in a culture that worships intensity and overlooks consistency. Social media shows people at the peak, not in the process. But the truth is, the process is where the magic happens. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, but it's effective. The student who studies every day will always outperform the one who crams at the last minute. The employee who improves a little each day will always grow faster than the one who only works hard when people are watching. Because real growth isn't occasional, it's habitual. And you have to understand that consistency is a mindset. It's not about being perfect, it's about being committed. Saying, I'm going to do something every day to get closer to my goal, even if it's small. even if it's messy, even if it doesn't look like much. It's about having the discipline to keep going, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's when it matters most. You won't always be motivated. That's a fact. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling. It fades. But consistency, that's a decision. That's a commitment. And if you build the muscle of consistency, you won't have to rely on motivation. You'll move forward regardless. You'll show up regardless. That's how you become unstoppable. Not by being hyped, but by being dedicated. And here's something powerful. When you stay consistent, your identity starts to shift. You begin to see yourself differently. You're not trying to be productive. You're a productive person. Identity is built through action, repeated action, daily action. And once your identity shifts, it becomes easier to stay consistent because you're just being who you are now. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you're telling yourself, I can count on me. That's how confidence is built, not by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by keeping promises to yourself. You don't need anyone else to validate your journey when you know that you're moving forward every day. Even slowly, even quietly, you know you're making progress. And don't get me wrong, there will be days when it's hard. There will be days when you're tired, distracted, discouraged. That's part of the journey. But you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. Keep showing up. Keep taking steps. Because consistency isn't about never missing. It's about never quitting. It's about building a rhythm, a momentum, a lifestyle. Even nature teaches us this. The river cuts through rock not because it's strong, but because it's persistent. The sun doesn't burn bright in one burst. It rises every morning without fail. That's the pattern of life. That's the pattern of growth. Not in flashes, but in repetition. So if you want to change your life, stop aiming for huge leaps. Stop trying to overhaul everything in a day. Just ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do today to move forward? Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Stack those small wins. String together those consistent actions, and before you know it, you'll look back and see a life that's completely transformed, not because of one big moment, but because of 1,000 small ones. The people who succeed don't have superpowers. They just don't quit. They keep showing up. They keep doing the work. They keep getting better a little at a time. They understand that success is not about doing everything. It's about doing something every day. That's the secret. That's the truth. That's the power of consistency over intensity. Everywhere you look, people are comparing. Social media has become the measuring stick for self-worth. You see someone buying a new car, taking a vacation, signing a deal, and immediately, without even realizing it, you begin to shrink. You start to question your own progress. You start to feel behind. You start to doubt the value of your journey. Why? Because you're measuring your life forward, looking at where others are and where you are. But real growth doesn't happen when you measure forward. Real transformation happens when you measure backward. When you stop focusing on how far you are from the goal and start appreciating how far you've already come. You see, when you constantly compare yourself to others, you rob yourself of peace. You rob yourself of clarity. And worst of all, you rob yourself of progress. Because instead of being motivated by your journey, you become paralyzed by someone else's. You freeze. You give up. You tell yourself you're not good enough. But here's the truth. The only person you should be competing with is the version of yourself from yesterday. That's the only scoreboard that matters. Not what they're doing, but you are doing. Not where they're going, but how far you've come. Too often we let the finish line blind us. We're so focused on what's left to do, what's left to fix, what's left to achieve, that we forget the battles we've already won. We forget that we're not the same person we were 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. Maybe you used to be anxious all the time and now you're calmer. Maybe you used to give up quickly and now you keep pushing. Maybe you used to live without discipline and now you're learning structure. That's progress. That's growth. But you'll never see it if you're only looking at how far you still have to go. You've got to stop discounting your growth just because someone else looks like they're ahead. You don't know their story. You don't know their struggle. You don't know the price they paid or what they're hiding behind the filter. People show their highlight reels, not their behind the scenes. And if you judge your behind the scenes by someone else's highlight reel, you'll always feel like you're not enough, but you are enough. And you've come further than you realize. The problem is you're not giving yourself credit. You're not taking the time to measure backward. Start asking yourself different questions. Instead of a why am I not there yet? Ask a where was I last year? Instead of a why don't I have what they have? Ask, what have I built so far that I never thought I could? Those questions unlock appreciation. They unlock perspective. And perspective is powerful because it reminds you that even slow growth is still growth. Even small progress is still progress. Measuring backward is about gratitude. It's about looking at the mountain behind you and realizing, wow, I climbed that. It might have been ugly. It might have been messy. It might have taken longer than you planned. But you climbed it. Oh, you moved forward. You endured. And now even if you're not at the peak yet, you're not at the bottom anymore either. You're further than you were. You're stronger than you were. That deserves to be acknowledged. When you measure backward, you also learn to trust the process. You see how things took time, how lessons unfolded, how setbacks shaped you. You start to understand that the journey isn't just about achievement, it's about evolution. Who you're becoming matters more than what you're collecting. And when you shift your focus from how far to go to how far I've come, you build confidence, you build momentum. You realize if I made it through that, I can make it through this. There will always be more to do, more goals, more dreams, more challenges. That's life. But if you never stop to appreciate the distance you've already traveled, you'll always feel behind. And that feeling of being behind is dangerous. It kills joy. It fuels burnout. It turns purpose into pressure. But measuring backward brings balance. It helps you realize that even if you're not where you want to be, you're not where you used to be either. Let me tell you something real. Progress doesn't always look like momentum. Sometimes it looks like resistance, like struggle, like barely hanging on. But the fact that you're standing, still fighting, still trying, that's proof that you've grown. The old you would have quit. The old you would have stayed down. But not this version. This version gets back up. This version is committed to becoming better. That's what backward measurement reveals. The character development that forward goals can't see. It's easy to overlook growth when you're in it. Just like you don't notice your own height until someone tells you, wow, you've gotten taller. You might not notice how much you've grown until you pause and reflect. That's why journaling helps. That's why celebrating small wins matters. It keeps you grounded in the truth of your progress. Not just emotionally, but tangibly. You start to see pattern. You start to realize how much you've overcome. And it gives you the fuel to keep going. And don't let setbacks erase your story. Don't let a bad month make you forget a whole year of wins. Don't let one mistake make you forget 10 victories. When you measure forward, setbacks feel fatal. But when you measure backward, setbacks feel like data, like part of the process, like stepping stones. They don't define you, they refine you. There's power in slowing down and reflecting. There's wisdom in looking back and noticing the steps that got you here. It humbles you, it grounds you. It reminds you that you're not just dreaming. You're doing, you're not just surviving, you're building. And even if it's not obvious to others, it's real to you. It counts. It matters because your journey matters. So the next time you're tempted to compare your journey with someone else's, stop and look at your own path. The next time you feel like giving up because the mountain still looks high, turn around and look at the climb you've already conquered. Give yourself credit. Give yourself grace. Because the person you were 6 months ago will be proud of how far you come. That's what measuring backward does. It centers you. It fuels you. It reminds you that you're not stuck, you're moving. It may be slow, but slow isn't the same as still. And when you acknowledge your progress, you activate your purpose. You reignite your passion. You realize that everything you've done up until now wasn't wasted. It was preparing you. The path to success isn't straight. It's filled with detours, delays, and detours. But every step forward, even if it feels small, adds up. Every setback carries a seed of strength. Every quiet victory deserves to be celebrated, but you'll only see it when you take the time to look back. So stop obsessing over how far you still have to go. Look back, reflect, honor the journey. Measure backward and watch how that gratitude fuels your growth forward. Because the only person you're in competition with is the old you. And every step you take beyond that version of yourself is a win. One worth recognizing, one worth being proud of, one that proves you're on your way. If you improve just 1% every single day, do you know what would happen? Most people don't understand the math. They underestimate small improvements and overestimate the importance of big breakthroughs. But if you improve by 1% every day for a year, by day 365, you wouldn't just be a little better. You'd be 37 times better. Not 37%, 37 times. That's the power of compound growth. It's not flashy, it's not immediate, but it's unstoppable. That's why you've got to respect the power of 1%. You've got to believe in the slow build. You've got to trust the process that doesn't shout, but whispers. Let me be clear. Success is rarely the result of one giant action. It's almost always the result of a series of small, deliberate actions stacked over time. It's not a leap. It's not a viral moment, it's a grind. It's a mindset. It's a choice made over and over and over and over again. Most people miss out on greatness not because they're incapable, but because they're impatient. They want results after a week of effort. They want rewards after a month of discipline, but that's not how real growth works. Real growth isn't loud. It's silent. It's silent. It happens in the early mornings, the quiet nights, the moments when no one is watching, but you still show up anyway. See, the problem is we've been conditioned to expect instant results. Fast food, fast lights, fast success. But life doesn't reward speed, it rewards consistency. And the power of 1% a day is the most consistent path there is. It may feel small, it may feel like it's not working, but every day you choose to do one thing better, you're setting in motion a transformation you can't even imagine. 1% adds up, 1% compounds, it multiplies. Over time, those tiny gains become explosive growth. Not because you did everything at once, but because you refuse to stop doing something every day. Let's put this into real terms. If you read 10 pages a day, that's 3,650 pages in a year. That's over 15 average-sized books. If you walk 30 minutes a day, that's over 180 hours of movement by the end of the year. If you save just $5 a day, that's $1,825 by the end of the year, and with investment, even more. But it's not about the numbers. It's about the mindset, the commitment, the vision that understands. Small hinges swing big doors. But here's the catch. 1% growth isn't always noticeable. And that's why most people quit. They say, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and nothing's changing. They don't see the abs yet. They don't see the bank account growing. They don't feel the impact. But that's because growth happens in layers. It's happening beneath the surface like a seed buried in the dirt. You don't see the roots, but that doesn't mean they're not growing. And if you keep watering that seed every day, just 1% better, you'll wake up one day and realize a tree has grown where there was once only soil. It's like ice melting. The temperature rises from 5 to 4 to 3 and nothing seems to change. Then 1, still nothing. But when it hits 0 degrees, boom, transformation. Water turns to liquid. That's how progress works. It builds up invisible until suddenly it becomes visible. But you only get that breakthrough if you stay consistent through the buildup. You only reach that moment if you respect the process. Now, let's be honest. 1% growth every day won't always feel inspiring. It won't always be exciting. In fact, most days it'll feel boring. But that's the secret. The people who win are the people who are okay with the boring work. They don't need motivation. They've got standards. They don't need hype. They've got habits. And those habits, that's where the real power lies. 1% every day is not about going hard. It's about going again. It's about showing up when it's not fun, when it's not easy, when nobody's watching. That's what separates the average from the elite. The elite don't need permission. They don't need to feel like it. They just do it because they build momentum. And momentum is what makes 1% easier tomorrow than it was today, because growth feeds confidence and confidence fuels commitment. It's a beautiful loop. You grow a little, you feel stronger, you feel stronger, you feel stronger, you keep going. And the more you go, the easier it becomes to believe that even your smallest actions matter. 1% isn't about overnight change. It's about long-term transformation. It's about building a system where progress becomes automatic, where good decisions become habits, where hard things become normal. Imagine waking up every day with a mindset that's, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be a little better than yesterday. Oh, that's freedom. That's power. That's how you win without burning out. And here's something you need to understand. The same law that works for you can also work against you. Because 1% worse every day is just as powerful as 1% better. Skip the gym today. It gets easier to skip tomorrow. Eat junk food now, it becomes a default. Procrastinate one task, it snowballs. Just like good habits compound, so do bad ones. And the scary thing is, they both feel small in the moment. They both feel harmless, but they're not. They're votes for who you become. That's why you gotta be intentional. You've gotta ask yourself every day, what's the one thing I can do today to get just 1% better? Not 10 things, not a perfect plan, just one thing. That's manageable, that's sustainable, that's powerful. You can't control everything, but you can control your next move, your next thought, your next meal, your next conversation. And if every move is just a little better than your last one, you win. Over time, you win big. Let's take it even deeper. 1% isn't just about performance, it's about mindset, it's about identity. When you commit to small daily improvement, you start to become someone who believes in growth, someone who expects excellence, someone who trusts themselves. That trust is the foundation of confidence. You start to look in the mirror and say, I'm not who I want to be yet, but I'm becoming that person. 1% at a time. That's powerful. That's unshakable. That's how self-worth is built, from action, not affirmation. So what's your 1% today? Maybe it's waking up on time, drinking more water, writing a paragraph, sending an email, making a phone call you've been avoiding, meditating for 5 minutes, reading one page. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be intentional. Progress doesn't demand perfection. It demands participation. Your future self isn't asking for everything today. They're asking you to show up just a little better than yesterday. And don't let setbacks derail you. One bad day doesn't erase your progress. One mistake doesn't define your path. You're not chasing perfection, you're chasing growth. And growth includes falling, failing, and learning. The key is to keep the momentum, to keep moving forward. Because the person who grows 1% daily and misses 1 or 2 days along the way is still miles ahead of the person who waits for the perfect plan and never starts. Let this be your mindset. Better beats best. Better than them. Better than you were. Let that fuel your grind. Let that guide your habits. And when you feel like giving up, remember you're just 1% away from the version of you that doesn't quit. 1% a day might sound small, but it's everything. It's the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. It's the secret to changing your body, your finances, your relationships, your career, your mindset, your life. It's how ordinary people create extraordinary results. Not all at once, but 1% at a time. And one day you'll look back and realize that the gap between where you started and where you are now wasn't built by luck or chance or giant leaps. It was built by discipline. It was built by showing up. It was built by 1,000 tiny decisions to grow instead of shrink, to rise instead of settle, to choose 1% better again and again and again. That's the formula. That's the mindset. That's the legacy. So as you walk away from this moment, remember this. Greatness isn't built in a day, but it is built daily. The version of you that you dream of becoming isn't waiting on some